And welcome to the Talon Outdoors show. I'm Charlie.
I'm JD.
And I'm Grant.
And Fred. Fred, say something. Fred.
Oh, I'm Fred.
No, just say something.
Oh, something.
There you go.
All right.
Paul's over there, and we've got some folks in the studio today. So I want to roll right into this because this is an auspicious occasion for us. We have the honor of having somebody in the studio today. I want to read you an excerpt from something off the internet from not the most reliable source. It's Wikipedia. I think people can go in there and change that. I could go in there and change something on Wikipedia right now, apparently, and then somebody Big Brother would proofread it and disapprove it, I'm sure. But here's an article about the Sutherland Springs church shooting. Y'all remember the church shooting out in Texas? Everybody knows that. Everybody in our world knows this. But on November the 5th, 2017, at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, a local man, who I will not say his name because we don't do that here, shot and killed 26 people and wounded 22 others. And that bastard was shot and wounded by another local resident and then killed himself after a car chase. It's the deadliest mass shooting in Texas history and the deadliest in an American place of worship, surpassing the Charleston church shooting of 2015. That local resident is key to ending that situation. And JD, who do we have in the studio today?
We have the local resident. He has a name. His name is Stephen Willeford, and he is in the studio today, and we're extremely honored to have him here today.
And he's sitting next to me. I'm sitting next to the good guy with the gun.
We're not often honored to have a guest. Yeah. If you look around you at the guests that we normally have, it's Paul. We're always honored to have Paul, but we're all our audience knows Fred, and they so.
Yeah, it's if there is let's just call it a poster of a superhero sheepdog, there you go.
When this occurred,
For those of you watching the video, he's the guy with the black cowboy hat on the end of the table there. He's showing off his Texas.
We spent our career in law enforcement, and we oohed and awed.
Sinking. Is that a plan? My chair keeps
Yeah, I'm trying.
Fred's over there trying to get you down to his level.
Fred's bumping.
I'm trying to be tall.
I have to keep pulling my mic down. I'm just like,
You switch out mine. I'm used to it.
Oh boy!
I'm sorry. You said this was unplanned, so
it is. There you go. Is that better? Hey, look at there. So the now taller Texan with the cowboy hat.
There you go.
I was sitting there and the music kept going down, and I kept pulling the mic down. It's like,
and I was.
Well, I look at the camera over there now. I can see the screen, and now you actually look taller than Fred. That's good.
You look a little tall on the radio.
I was
I'm
feeling
gonna have
like
to pull the hat off because.
There you go.
Well, every picture I see you on the internet's got that black hat on, so now they won't recognize you.
Well, the headset.
Yeah, I know. I can kind of anyway. That's all irrelevant. I'm sure you've been on podcasts and radio shows and TV shows and everything before, so you have to tough it out. The best thing you do. This is our primitive attempt to do that here in our studio. We're cheap. We built the tables and did everything in here and hung crap on the walls just to make it look like it was quasi-professional. But don't stomp your feet too hard; it might fall apart. So you're traveling around, and you're with our representative from Gun Owners of America today, and you brought a book. So why don't you just tell us about – let's start with your book.
Well, so the book is about more than just the church shooting. The book is about the most precious little community that you would ever want to be part of. I'm fourth generation in Sutherland Springs, Texas. The total population of Sutherland Springs is under 600 people.
Wow.
So we're Mayberry, USA, with Aunt B and everybody else knows everybody, and Sutherland Springs is just that. A lot of city folks always say, I never want to live in a small community like that because they got their nose in your business. And my response to that is, if you don't have bad business, it's not a bad place to be. It's not a problem, because when I was growing up, my great-grandfather used to take me around and deliver food baskets to people that the community knew were struggling. And he instilled that sense of community in me. And that very church He used to pick me up when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I would grab onto the rope, and he'd pull me up and down to ring the bell to bring people to services.
Wow.
That's my community. That's what this country used to be. And if we don't find some sense of that again, we are doomed to fail.
Whereabouts in Texas is Sutherland Springs?
It is about 35 miles southeast of San Antonio. Everybody knows the Doobie Brothers song, China Grove,
Yeah.
a little southeast of San Antonio. So you have to drive through China Grove from San Antonio to get down to Sutherland Springs. We're kind of halfway between Victoria and San Antonio.
So you're sort of close to Uvalde, right?
I'm about 3 hours from Uvalde, 2.5, 3 hours from
That's close for
Uvalde.
Texas.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's close for Texas. Yeah, people don't, they fly into like Lubbock and say, "Hey, I'm coming in Texas. Can you come see me?" You're 9 hours one way away. Yeah. So that would be a hard no.
Yeah, yeah. We deal with the same thing in Florida. It's just shaped different. We got to go east and then south, and you can drive for 12 hours from here and still be in Florida.
Yeah.
So
my dad was a truck driver, and he drove onions from down in the valley all over to Georgia and stuff, and he always used to say the sun rose and the sun set, and I still ain't out of Texas yet.
That could be a song.
It's a big state when when we've driven through there.
we've
going
driven
to
all
and
the way
from
across
hunting.
it a couple times. Yeah, for sure.
So I haven't read your book. I just opened it and read a few excerpts from it. I'm going to have a tough time reading this thing. There's going to pull on some heartstrings, I'm pretty sure. So I'm not going to peruse it too much right now because we tend to get emotional about people's lives, loved ones, and dogs on this show. So let's talk more about you. So obviously when this went down, you had access to an AR-15, which is not terribly uncommon in the state of Texas, is it?
Not uncommon at all. I built my own AR-15 for competition.
Mm-hmm.
I built it with a Spikes Tactical, good Florida company, strip Spikes Tactical lower receiver. I used a Rock River varminter trigger in it. I used a Wilson chrome moly barrel for light. And I just put it together with what I wanted, and I used to compete, shooting and moving and hitting targets. And I tell people all the time, if they're standing at a range in one spot shooting at flat targets, they're practicing marksmanship. And marksmanship, however good that is, it's not going to help you in a real-world situation. If you're in a gunfight and you're standing in one place, you're the target. You just haven't figured it out yet.
We have a different spin on that, and that's if you have a really good stance, you have really bad tactics.
Or what is it? If you're in a fair fight, your tactics suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but you in this situation, you heard what was going on, and I know how much trauma there can be in regurgitating facts after a life or death struggle like this. But without getting too deep into it, when we come back from the break, I want to give you an opportunity to sort of outline the logistics, the usage of your tools, and maybe a little whatever information you're willing to share and to talk about within, without, getting too far off on a tangent on that, because I get it. We get it. There's been and I'm kind of beating dead air time now because we've got less than a minute before the break. So I don't get too deep into it.
I did want to point out that the book is called A Town Called Sutherland Springs, Faith and Heroism Through Tragedy. And he told me before the show that his daughter, you can see his name, and Rachel Howell is your daughter.
Absolutely.
So she helped you write this, and we're gonna have a good couple segments here, so y'all stay tuned.
Yeah, page 148.
Yeah, we'll be back here in just a minute.
And we're back. So Stephen, we were talking before the break about giving you an opportunity to give us the skinny on what went down, because some of the listeners are going, yeah, I vaguely remember that. I remember it was a big deal, and they heard what I read at the beginning of the segment. But without getting into the nuances of everything, tell us kind of what went down in your own words.
Well, so November 5th, 2017, I was actually going to stay at home from church that day because I worked as a maintenance plumber for a hospital. Mm-hmm. And on Monday morning, I was going to start my on-call, meaning I had to carry a pager. Most millennials don't know what a pager is. This is confounded little box that beeps on you and it'll get you where your phone can't.
Yeah.
And I would have to go to the hospital, and I was going to be working anywhere from 20 to 30 extra hours that week. So I decided to stay home. And my wife decided, since we weren't going to church, that she was going to go tape and float my younger daughter's house that was pregnant with my very first grandbaby. And we were building the home on our own, so she went over we were on a timetable. We were trying to get them out of our house into their own house before the baby was born. So she went over to my other daughter's house. My older daughter was staying with us because she was engaged to be married, and she didn't want to sign another apartment lease she'd be stuck with when she married her husband, so she moved back in with us. And that kind of sets the morning, and I'm relaxing in bed with no shoes on. And the older daughter came in and said, "Dad, doesn't that sound like gunfire?" Right away, your mind tries to make something normal out of abnormal things. Mm-hmm. And I thought it sounded like somebody tapping at my window. And I went over and opened the curtain. She said, "No, come in the other room, it's louder in there." And when I went into the other room, I realized it was gunfire, and I ran for my safe. That daughter ran outside, jumped in her Honda Fit to run up the block and see what was going on. And I called my wife and I said, "Where are you at?" She said, "I'm at Rachel's house." I said, "Stay there. Don't go anywhere." She said, "What's going on?" I said, "Somebody's shooting up the Baptist Church." She said, "Don't go over there," and I hung up on her. And I grabbed an AR-15 out of my safe. I grabbed a handful of ammo, poking it into a magazine as I ran for the door. And before I reached the door, the other daughter burst in and said, "Dad, there's a guy in black tactical gear shooting up the church." He had started shooting from the outside through the walls and the windows of a 100-year-old church. He put them all under the pews and stuff, and then he started shooting through the doors. And that's when my daughter drove up and saw him shooting through the doors. She said, "He's in black tactical gear shooting up the church." And I said, "Did you call 911? She said, "I did. They're aware of it." So as I ran out the door, I feared more the police that were coming than I did the shooter himself. Because if you can imagine, they're coming hard and fast to a mass shooting. And I'm running across the street with no shoes on and an AR-15 in my hand.
So the church is across the street?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it's kind of around the corner, and it's from my front door to the front door of the church is about 100 yards.
Okay.
And if you see this much fat running down the road, something serious is going down. I'm just saying, I don't run for just no excuse.
So you're running towards the church with your AR.
And halfway across, I yelled out, and I can't explain other than I truly believe that the Holy Spirit was on me and called out a demon within the church. He had just shot Julie Workman through the breast, and they were hiding under a pew, and then she shot Chris Workman in the back, instantly paralyzing Chris. And he was pointing the pistol at Chris's face, and Chris said, "I just knew I was going to meet Jesus."
Yeah.
And he said, "I heard you yell." He said the expression on the shooter's face changed, and he dropped his rifle in the church. He was shooting people with a rifle through the pews, and then he'd walk over point blank range and finish them with a pistol. He heard me yell. He dropped his rifle in the church, and he came out shooting at me. He had on Class 3 body armor and a ballistic bulletproof helmet. and he started firing at me, and I ran behind a Dodge pickup truck. There's something about a 6.2-liter V8 Hemi that was real comforting at the moment. And I came over the hood. He hit the truck in front of me. He shattered the windshield of the car behind me. He hit the house behind me. I put one in his left chest, stopped by the body armor. I put one in his abdomen, stopped by the body armor. At that point, he ran for his vehicle, which was sitting in the middle of the street, driver's side door open, engine running. And when he turned to his side, I was able to put one high in his side, in between the plates. And then I put one in his legs. He got into his vehicle, slammed the door, and he put 2 shots through the side window at me. And I saw the glass open up and falling. I put one where I perceived his head to be. I couldn't see it from the reflection of the glass, but it broke right underneath the rim of the helmet from one side of his forehead to the other. And then he wanted out. He was done. He accelerated, turned the corner, and running as fast as he could. By the time I got in the middle of the street, he was about 150 yards away and leaving. I put a bullet through the back windshield. It shattered that. Went through the driver's side seat, hit him right at the left shoulder blade. He topped the hill and out of sight. I ran over to a pickup truck that was another Dodge, by the way, that was parked at the stop sign. I tapped on the window. I didn't even know the guy. And I tapped on the window and said, that guy just shot up the Baptist church and we have to stop him. Now, picture that. He just saw the whole gunfight. He was on 911 talking to dispatch. And I run over and tap on the window and say, that guy just shot up the Baptist church. Any sane human being in this world would have just jammed on the gas and left me there. But this is Texas. We're not known for sanity. So the next thing I heard were the locks pop open. I climbed up in the cab of a truck with a long, tall Texan. Has a longhorn skull tattooed in the middle of his neck, and the horns run up under his ears. It's a cartoon of Texas. Johnny Langendorf, I'd never met him before in my life, and I climbed up in the cab, and he took off chasing. We chased 11.6 miles, and then the shooter ended it himself. He tucked the pistol up under his helmet and pulled the trigger, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not really bothered by that.
Wow.
That is
That's
amazing.
a story.
And there are so many, when you're talking, I'm listening to things that we've been teaching for years, and we've been preaching to people for years, and we go into houses of worship and we share the concerns, and we use this situation as an example a lot of times because, and in our active shooter courses that we teach and all the things, this is one of those examples that we talk about, but have never heard, haven't read your book, didn't know the whole story. There's so much more to it, and with respect, my impression of you leading up to this point was nowhere near as pronounced as it is now going forward. The story I just heard from you, kudos to you, sir. Bless your heart. I can't imagine you having handled that situation any better, but I have one question. When you yelled, what did you say?
That was my question.
Because I want that magic word.
Are you ready for something deep and philosophical?
Sure.
I yelled, "Hey!" I don't know, but I will tell you. People say, "Are you a religious man?" No, I'm a man of faith.
Mm-hmm.
I believe God created faith. Man created religion. I believe that God spoke to a demon at that moment, and what I thought I yelled and what actually came out of my mouth were two different things. Mm-hmm. Because they heard me in the church, and if you can imagine, they were hiding under pews hearing gunshots, and they heard me yell. And at that moment, it wouldn't have taken him 2 seconds to finish Christian and his mother off. But instead, he dropped his rifle in the church and came out shooting at me.
The tone of your voice, I'm sure, had something to do with it. And we talk about command presence and command voice and things like that. And I remember a friend of ours that worked for me on the road, very soft-spoken person from South Pacific, who the Ponsuea, who was
Samoan.
Very soft-spoken, generally speaking. And I remember one night when he was chasing somebody, and he bellowed stop. And he sounded like a god on a volcano, Samoan god off of a volcano telling everyone to, and I was like, where did that come from? And it is, in fact, amazing what, the impression, but without a little bit of maybe divine guidance, but I'd pay any amount of money for a recording of you in that moment, because what you said saved lives and turned the situation into a real fight between someone who's a piece of that's in there doing what he was doing versus someone who had the ability to fight back. And we also are very strong proponents here of people carrying firearms in church and being able to defend themselves. And a lot of people just don't want to violate the sanctity of the house of worship by bringing guns in, and this is a perfect example of why they in fact should.
Remember when Jesus asked his apostles, do you have a sword? They said, we have these. He said, that's good. But if you do not have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one.
Yep, absolutely.
Well,
and it's we kind of discussed this before, and it's as a general rule with any of these, I don't even like to call them people, any of these creatures that go and do these bad things at mass shootings where they're going into a situation where you have an unarmed crowd and they do these bad things, just any opposition sometimes will completely change the day, win the day. So,
all right, we're going to be back in just a minute. And we're back. So we're going to change the tune just a little because of our variance of our show format and stuff like that. So we're going to come back to Mr. Willeford here in just in a few minutes in the third segment and talk about some other things. But just want to kind of change the direction just a fudge. I do. We are going to put the book and the links to where we can find it once I'm sure this is available through multiple sources. Can you get this like on Amazon or something?
You can get it on Amazon. You can actually, I think you can go to gunowners.org and pick it up.
Okay.
You can go to a link, The Barefoot Defender, and that's my website, and you can pick up the book from that.
Barefoot
but all
Defender.
that is a link to Amazon.
okay.
Yeah.
So while we're here, I mean, this is you talked a bit about. We talked about being the sheepdog philosophy is big in our world. We
absolutely.
and that came from we picked up on that concept from Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. You're familiar with his books.
He's a good friend of mine.
Yes, and we've had lunch with him at events and
He wrote a blurb for the book, by the way.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. He wouldn't remember us from Adam, but we're just some of the masses that follow him. But we quote his material in all of our coursework and all of our classes, and we talk about the physiological, psychological stress dynamics and the sense of time manipulation, slow motion, fast motion. We talk about vascular constriction, and we talk about tunnel vision and auditory exclusion and all those things that happen to us. I assume you're familiar with those concepts.
Absolutely, and way more familiar because everything slowed to a crawl for me when it was happening. And basically I was told that that's when your training has kicked in, and that's when he said take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the midbrain takes over for the conscious. And I've tried. I try to explain that in a real simple concept to most people, and it's like that caveman that's way down deep inside your brain is running the show under that critical stress. When you have that critical incident stress going on, if you haven't trained the caveman or cavewoman what to do in the critical incident, the thinking person that's sitting here talking on the radio ain't going to be anywhere to be found under critical incident stress.
So if you don't train your brain to do anything in high stretch situation. It does exactly what you trained it to do, which is nothing.
Stephen, what have you spent your career doing?
By trade, I'm a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
I call myself a drain surgeon.
That's good.
Well, see, I'm not just a plumber. I've spent more time in school than most graduates because I've got Texas MedGas certifications. I've got the ASSE 6010, which is the National MedGas and National Brazing. I've got backflow prevention. I've got emergency eye wash. I've got OSHA 30, OSHA 10. I've got, when my resume goes out, I've spent so much time in plumbing that people can't believe. And so, yeah,
Well, listening to the stuff you talked about and when you were describing the incident, you've also spent some time on the range, obviously, a considerable amount of time on the range, and probably, I'm guessing, a considerable amount of competitive shooting.
I was a competitor. I was also an instructor. One of my students went on set women's collegiate national record with a pistol.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Well, obviously, you've spent some time behind that AR. You said you shot competitively and you built that rifle for competition. And while I'm not a big fan of competitive shooting versus tactics, I like tactics and training with tactics. A lot of competitive shooting is jumping out into a doorway and exposing yourself and doing things. But done right, and with the right mindset, the two skills do cross over. I can't shoot competitively because I can't bring myself to do it fast enough because I'm afraid to jump out from behind cover. I'm over there creeping out behind cover doing things. But the point is you spend enough time behind that, you obviously could hit what you aimed at. You talked about you had an EOTech, right?
Yes.
So you got a red dot sight, you've got a very fine-tuned rifle, and you obviously knew what you were doing with it. We're going to come back in just a minute and expand on that. And I want to talk about your relationship with GOA because you're wearing a shirt and you're here with their guy. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, we're back. We're going to spend another segment with Mr. Stephen Willeford. I won't go out on a limb too far. I'm going to say the hero of the
Barefoot
Sutherland Springs.
Defender.
The Barefoot
Defender. I love that. That's awesome.
Y'all must not have them same stickers in South Texas that I experienced up in North Texas. On the hunting trip.
we do have them, but there's some things adrenaline allows. Okay,
Absolutely.
And people ask me all the time, really, you didn't take time to put shoes on? I said, when the gunfire is aimed at someone you care about, you take your necessities with you. You're lucky I had pants on.
Yeah,
they would have been a different name.
You went with what you had.
The pantsless Defender just doesn't do it as like the Barefoot Defender does.
I will. Yeah, I try to. The only difference between me and my setup is I tend to keep loaded magazines around, because when you started talking about thumbing some rounds in a magazine, I was going, oh my God, that had to have been. I call it, because I was asked to speak before the United States Senate on Safe Storage Act, and I had to talk about the fact that I am against a Safe Storage Act, but the reason I had my gun locked away is 5 years earlier, I was burglarized, and the burglar got the only pistol that was outside the safe. And I feared for a long time coming home and the burglar be back in my house, this time with my gun. So I made a habit of unloading everything and putting away in the safe, everything. And that is 90 seconds. I timed it 3 different times. My best time was 91 seconds, being able to get into my safe, get a gun out, grab a handful of ammo, and load it, running to the door. That's 91 seconds I'll never get back. Who knows who else I could have saved if I'd been there faster. And Chris Workman himself said, because he was shot, and I told Chris, I said, if I had been there
15 seconds earlier, you'd walk your daughter down the aisle when she got married.
Do you carry concealed when you go to church?
Absolutely. Well, no. Sometimes at church, I carry wide open. And people...
But you carry.
Oh, absolutely. And people say, why do you carry wide open? First off, I've had a little bit of pistol retention skills and training and stuff. And I figure if somebody comes First Baptist Church again, Sutherland Springs, they're going to look for me first anyway.
Yeah, probably.
They're going to look for the black cowboy hat.
Yeah.
How many rounds did you get in that magazine?
I had 8 rounds in the magazine, and I hit him 6 out of 8, had 2 left. I hit him 100% of the shots I pulled off.
Does anybody else in the church, prior to this occurring, did anybody else carry firearms?
See, I don't believe in coincidences. There were 4 men that normally carried at the church, and the pastor being one of them. He was training in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, he was training so he could be a black powder instructor, so that during summer camp he could teach the kids black powder shooting, and he was in Oklahoma. He wasn't there.
Huh.
Rick Green was a good friend of mine. He was a Army veteran from Vietnam, normally carried. It was the weekend of the time change. And he chose to feed he knew the pastor was out of town. He chose to feed his cattle that day and was going to make it to church late. He was not there. We had one other person that normally carried, that their wife went on a trip in her car, and he did not want her traveling without a gun, so he loaned her his gun. And the 4th person was late to church that day also. And so all 4 people that normally would have carried, and I truly believe that there is no coincidences. It's like Satan said, today is the day. And God said, but you forgot about my servant Stephen.
Do you know why this person showed up there at that church on this day?
Well, he showed up the week before to the church to the fall festival. And he got so irate and stuff, they asked him to leave.
It was an ongoing domestic, if I remember right. It was an ongoing domestic in his...
Well, they asked him to leave. He said he hated all Christians, and he was using quite profanity and stuff in the midst of a bunch of children. They asked him to leave. His mother and father-in-law and brother-in-law went to that church. His wife's grandmother went to that church. The mother and father-in-law and brother-in-law were not there at the church that day. But he killed his wife's grandmother.
Jeez.
So you are here wearing a Gun Owners of America shirt. I have me a brand new GOA hat on my head.
Thank you, Jed, for the hats.
Yeah. And we
too.
appreciate the challenge coins. It's always, I'm a big collector, and for anybody out there that has any. So tell us about, I want to plug the GOA while you're here, too. Jed's sitting on the couch. He wouldn't come over here and do it. So I think he wants to put you out front today. So,
well, Gun Owners of America. So with my story, I could work with any one of the big gun advocacy groups. I am life members to almost all of them. I believe in the shotgun approach. I sign up to all of them. But when it came down and the rubber meets the road, Gun Owners of America are the only ones that are no compromise when it comes to our Second Amendment. We don't believe in any, minute infringement upon our right to be able to. The Bill of Rights is the Bill of Rights. It's God-given rights, and it restricts the government from infringing upon those rights. And I don't care what state you're in, that covers. The federal government doesn't cover everything they'd like to cover. But the Bill of Rights, God-given rights, were set up to where no state should be able to infringe upon those rights. Your freedom of speech, which we're doing right now, your freedom of religion, and all those bills of the Bill of Rights. right along with your Second Amendment. And what they do is keep the government in check. And GOA is the only ones that really fights every gun law out there. And so they're of the same mindset that I am. Joe Biden himself, after the shooting, was asked in a press conference, and he was vice president at the time. He said, I should have never owned the kind of gun that I used. He's such a...
Yeah, don't get us started on that.
So he thinks I should have stepped out of my house with a shotgun, blasted 2 shots in the air, and
That's his thing.
And the killer would have just run off.
Well, the president at the time called the Constitution a charter of negative liberties, which just offends me like there is no tomorrow. But yeah.
So yeah, we take offense at most of the current administration, and we believe the same thing: is the Bill of Rights is in fact rights. And now we applaud all the organizations that do fight on our behalf. Some are less compromising than others. I agree.
And that's why I chose to work for Gun Owners of America. So just recently, Colorado had a assault weapons ban, and our Rocky Mountain regional director called me up, said, I want to list you and put you speaking. And Colorado said, we don't usually let somebody outside of Colorado speak. And I said, you're using Sutherland Springs as a excuse to pass an assault weapons ban. Don't you think you should speak to somebody from Sutherland Springs?
The other guy with the assault weapon that stopped the killing.
Yeah.
And that's
and so I waited 6.5 hours on a Zoom call to testify in Colorado, and we beat that assault weapons ban by 1 vote in committee.
wow.
Do you think anybody would know your name if you had that 91 seconds and you had stopped the shooter before he caused all of the carnage that he did?
Probably not, and the media doesn't like them knowing my name anyway.
And we're back. So
This is one of those shows where you wish we had a 3-hour show.
When Dale tried to, don't y'all want to do 2 hours or 3 hours or something? We run that down. So we're back. We were going to try to get Paul on here, and we're going to squeeze him in at the end, but we want to spend as much time with Mr. Willeford as we can. So, Stephen, you wanted to cover something on training. So let's talk about training. How important is training, and what kinds of training do you think are important?
So I used to shoot, and you could say it, shoot competition or train or whatever you want to call it. It was a competition. The local range, it was Black Hawk Range in San Antonio, and they had a league competition. And so we never knew from one point to the next what we were going to be looking at the next week. One time we walked up, and there was a plastic baby doll sitting on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and a box of diapers and earplugs. And they said, today's course of fire. When the whistle blows, you change the baby's diaper, you pick it up, and you shield it away from your targets, shooting with your strong hand and hit the targets. And if you stutter your step and take that shot, you're added 5 seconds to the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at the end of it, you manipulate the baby to your strong shoulder, shield it away, you drop your magazine, rechamber, and then you go across shooting at the targets, going back across with your weak hand only. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my goodness, well, that's crazy. And then the next week, we had a welding hood sitting there with earplugs because we were going to wear the welding hood. Now it's low light training with tunnel vision, mm-hmm. because you only had a very small glass that you could see through. You could see your hands, you could see the silhouette, but you couldn't see your sights. So you practiced shooting with low light situations. And I'm gonna tell people, if you're practicing shooting at flat targets standing in one spot, you're practicing marksmanship. And however good marksmanship is, it's not going to get you through a real life situation. And I was part of the governor's roundtable at El Paso after the shooting at the Walmart. And so I have different information than what most people have about that shooting. There were 8 concealed carry permit holders in that Walmart. And none of the 8 chose to confront the shooter. Why is that? Well, those 8, I would say, are carrying guns. They got their families out of the Walmart safely. I'm good with that. That's honorable. None of them chose to confront the shooter because none of them probably ever had any kind of training to do so. In my case, if a shooter comes into Walmart and my family's there, I'm going to tell them, hit the door, run. Get out of here. Don't worry about me. I'm going to confront that shooter. And I'm going to occupy him because my family stands a better chance of getting out if I'm occupying that shooter. I will save my family and yours too.
That is the epitome of the sheepdog mentality.
And that's why we encourage people to have a plan with their family, a certain phrase or some dialogue that you have pre-planned, and you say that to them, and they know that it's time to go hide, it's time to call 911 while you go to work if you choose to do so. I mean, it's our families come first.
Have you ever interviewed Pastor David?
No.
He was in Seattle, Washington when the shooting at the Walmart there happened. And he told his wife and family, get out now. He ran with his gun, and when he got to the front of the store, everybody pointed outside, said the shooter went outside where he sent his family. But he stepped out. At that point, the shooter was trying to carjack someone, and the guy was trying to back out of the parking lot. The shooter shot the guy that was driving, and Pastor David shot and killed him. Pastor David is a pastor. He was also a EMT. He was able to save the guy in the car. I say he's the most rounded sheepdog this world has ever seen because he saved souls on Sunday. He took out the bad guy, and he saved the guy's life that was in the car. How amazing is that?
That's crazy. So, listen, we're going to get our fishing segment here at the end, and I want to plug your book again, a town called Sutherland Springs, Faith and Heroism Through Tragedy. We're going to put a link on our on our Facebook page, and obviously they can Google this. You said there's several sources through your what was it, Barefoot what now?
The Barefoot Defender.
The Barefoot Defender, and through Amazon and some other GOA and all. And so, sir, thank you so much for being here.
It was absolutely my honor.
It's an honor on all of our behalves and overwhelming for us. Yeah. That said, this is right up Paul's alley because Paul's
been. I've been watching Paul sitting over there with just awe and amazement, listening to this story.
I'll tell you what, that's amazing. It's just, when do I sign up for training? I mean that's. To build a.
We start out. We're doing about 2 classes a month now.
I think I need to start.
Yeah.
Join, you already
we'll have some soccer day after that.
So Paul's a professional. Paul is a professional fishing guide at one of our local lakes here. Big bass fisherman and crappie, sockeye, whatever you call it in your part of the country, fishing guide. But we're also bringing Paul into our world a lot, just because we spend a lot of time with him. So we have Paul is a good representative of a new guy.
I'd love to go fishing with you someday, Paul.
I catch fish. No?
I'll tell you. You being from Texas, how far are you from like Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn? Those, are you familiar with those?
We're closer to Calaveras Lake.
Okay.
Bronick Lake.
Yep.
What's the one that's south down by Corpus? But anyway, we've got several good fishing lakes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Elite Series, the Bass Elite Series are at Toledo Bend right now. This is the second day of the tournament. Yeah. I think one of the Japanese guys had like 32 pounds yesterday. By fish limit, they weighed 32 pounds, but they're catching them. But, man, right now Lake Seminole is muddy still. Rivers are flooded. Spring Creek is still muddy, but the water is warming up, and the big fish are moving shallow. I just had a kid last week catch a 10-pounder. Did I show you that picture yet?
Yeah.
Man, it was awesome seeing him fight that fish. When you get a youngin' to catch a big bass, he's hooked for life.
He's hooked. He's hooked. No pun intended. He's going to be fishing
awesome.
forever.
It was awesome. But I'm going to get that posted on my Facebook page today. But the crappie are spawning on Lake Seminole. And it's kind of hard to see them with the muddy water. But Lake Talcon, they are biting in that 10 to 12 foot of water out in front of Harvey Creek. Little River, Polk Creek, they're staging up in there, and there's some starting to move in. But as we go over the next couple of weeks, as we end February going into March, it's going to be really good. Your Cincos right now is working good. A topwater bait as this water warms up, a big frog, a buzz bait. You ever thrown a buzz bait? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know how to eat that thing. I mean, they're going to jerk the rod out of your hand. But this is a great time of year for fishing, especially for bass fishing over the next couple of weeks. And so,
you're going next week to Guntersville.
Yes, I'll be going to Guntersville, leaving day after tomorrow, Sunday, and we're going to be up there all week. So next week I'll be calling Grant on the
computer.
Through the app.
You know, speaking of churches, that's where they have that snake handling church.
Huh? Do I?
Up here at Guntersville.
I've never been to one of them. Have you?
Yeah, it's on Sand Mountain. That's where my wife's family's from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's Church of the Rattlesnake, I think is what they call it.
I probably won't be going to that, but
You talk about carrying something. I mean,
Y'all ain't right. So, yeah, right now this time of year is when we get the water finally get straightened out.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, so. I noticed they're still pulling about 70,000 CFS out of the Lake Seminole, but it's starting to come down a little bit. And this rain we had today, it wasn't that much. So I think it's going to start clearing up.
Yeah, we should. This weekend the show airs on Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
It's supposed to be a Chamber of Commerce kind of beautiful weekend that we're going to have here. So
it sure is.
So Stephen, are you going back to you on a tour now, or are you?
Well, we're going to hit several places. There's a big rally. Where's the rally at?
Where's the rally at, Jed? Ocala.
Okay.
Florida at
that's Marion County. Be careful.
Yeah, it's going to be an overnight rally. They're going to stay overnight, and we're going to rally today with them, and then tomorrow all day during the day, pro gun rally. Get out there, come see us, and then we're going to hit up some of the gun ranges and manufacturers if we can. And
Awesome.
Don't go to the villages.
Well, we really appreciate you
Yes,
being
sir.
part of the show. Thanks again so much, and we'll see everybody next week.